Hello everyone and welcome to Lesson 7.2A. I've entitled this video, The Need for Change. This video is going to cover pages 184 to 186. The Need for Change. A growing number of Americans became convinced that the government under the Articles of Confederation was too weak to deal with the country's problems. Among these problems were serious economic difficulties. After the Revolutionary War, the United States went through a depression, a period when economic activity slows and unemployment increases. Wartime damage to southern plantations led to a sharp drop in rice exports. Trade also fell off when the British closed the West Indies market to American merchants. The little money the government did have went to pay debts to foreign countries. This resulted in a serious shortage of money in the United States. Question number 1. What were more and more Americans beginning to think about the Articles of Confederation as time went on? That it was too weak to deal with our problems. Number 2, what is an economic depression? An economic depression is a period when economic activity slows and unemployment increases. So just like the pictures show here, fewer people have money and businesses are forced to either lay off people or just close altogether. It's not good for your country. Question 3. What were some of the reasons why the United States experienced an economic depression after the Revolutionary War? Well, number 1, some of the wartime damage had led to southern plantations not selling as much. 2, the trade was dropping quite a bit because the British had closed the West Indies market to American merchants. They were doing that on purpose. And so it was hard for us to make as much money as we once did. Shays Rebellion. Economic troubles hit farmers hard. Unable to sell their goods, they could not pay their taxes and debts. This led state officials to seize farmers' lands and throw them in jail. This treatment angered many farmers. Some began to view the new government as just another form of tyranny. They wanted the government to issue paper money and make new policies to help those in debt. A group of farmers in Massachusetts made this plea to state officials. Primary source from petition from the town of Greenwich, Massachusetts. Surely your honors are not strangers to the distresses of the people, but know that many of our good inhabitants are now confined in jail for debt and taxes. Resentment boiled in Massachusetts. In 1786, angry farmers led by former Continental Army Captain Daniel Shays forced courts in the western part of the state to close. The goal was to stop judges from legally taking away farmers' lands. Question number 4. What happened to farmers who could not sell their farm goods? Well, because they couldn't sell the goods, they couldn't pay their taxes and their debts. And this is going to lead to trouble because question 5, what did state officials do to farmers when they couldn't pay their debts and taxes? They took their lands, they seized them, they took the lands, and then they threw the farmers in jail. So imagine how frustrated you'd be as a farmer. You fought in the Revolutionary War, and now they're taking your lands and throwing you in jail. You're wondering, why is this any better than the way we lived under King George III? And in some ways, it's worse. Question 6. What were 2 things farmers wanted the American government to do to help them through this difficult time? They wanted to, number 1, the government to issue paper money so they could pay off their debts. And 2, they wanted the government to make new laws, new policies to help them get through this debt. Question 7. In what state did Shays Rebellion take place? In the same state that had led to the Revolutionary War to begin with, Massachusetts. Question 8. What was Daniel Shays trying to accomplish in 1786? He was trying to stop judges from taking away the lands of the farmers. The farmers' revolt grew. In January 1787, Shays led a force of about 1,200 supporters toward the Federal Arsenal, or weapons storehouse, in Springfield, Massachusetts. The farmers wanted to seize guns and ammunition. The state militia ordered the advancing farmers to halt and then fired over their heads. The farmers did not stop. The militia fired again, killing 4 farmers. Shays and his followers fled, and the uprising was over. Still, Shays' rebellion frightened Americans. Concern grew that the government could not handle unrest and prevent violence. On hearing of the rebellion, George Washington wondered whether mankind, when left to themselves, are unfit for their own government. Question number 9. What is an arsenal? An arsenal is a weapons storehouse. It's a place where guns and ammunition are stored. Question 10. Why did Daniel Shays and his forces go to Springfield, Massachusetts? Well, there was an arsenal there, and they wanted to get some guns and ammunition for their uprising. Question 11. Although Shays Rebellion wasn't successful, why was it a wake-up call to concerned Americans like George Washington? Well, it made them realize, this Articles of Confederation, it is not doing well in handling unrest and preventing violence. It's just simply not working. It's not doing the job that it needs to do. Slavery in the New Republic. The Revolutionary War called attention to the clash between the American belief in liberty and the practice of slavery. Between 1776 and 1786, 11 states, all except South Carolina and Georgia, outlawed or taxed the importation of enslaved people. Slavery existed and was legal in every state. In the North, however, it was not a major source of labor. People in that region began working to end slavery in America. In 1774, Quakers in Pennsylvania founded the first American anti-slavery society. 6 years later, Pennsylvania passed a law that provided for the gradual freeing of enslaved people. Between 1783 and 1804, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, and New Jersey passed laws that gradually ended slavery there. Still, free African Americans faced discrimination. They were barred from many public places. Only a few states gave them the right to vote. Most of their children had to attend separate schools from white children. In response, free African Americans set up their own churches, schools, and aid groups. Slavery continued to spread south of Pennsylvania. The plantation system depended on slave labor, and many white Southerners feared their economy could not survive without it. That fear did not stop a number of slaveholders from freeing enslaved people. The number of free African Americans increased in Virginia after that state passed a law that encouraged manumission, the freeing of individual enslaved persons. Around this time, American leaders were deciding that the Articles of Confederation needed to be strengthened. The question of slavery would make those discussions more difficult. Question number 12. What did 11 of the 13 states make either illegal or tax between 1776 and 1786? Well, those 11 states either taxed or outlawed the importation of enslaved people, meaning you could not bring in new slaves from Africa, or it was at least taxed. So you could see they were taking a stand on the importation, the bringing in of enslaved people. Question 13. Which two states did not make it illegal or tax that? That would be South Carolina and Georgia. And those two states are where slavery is really going to take hold. We call that the Deep South. And their plantation economy made them not even want to think about doing that sort of thing. Question 14. What was legal in every state until 1780? Slavery. While it was declining in the North, it still was technically legal, although it would slowly be and gradually be taken away. Question 15, speaking of that, geographically, which states began to gradually put an end to slavery? Well, it started in the New England and Middle colonies. So the northern colonies, the northern states, started to outlaw it gradually and slowly, and then the middle states also started to do as such. But the southern states geographically would not put an end to slavery. Question 16, what are some examples of how free African Americans faced discrimination at that time? Well, number one, they were barred from many public places. 2, only a couple states gave them the right to vote. And 3, you started to see segregation happen where many African American children had to go to separate schools. And so this is another example of treating people differently, even though they should not have been. So even if they were free, African Americans were still facing a tough challenge here in America. Question 17. Why did slavery continue to spread in the states south of Pennsylvania? Well, because those states primarily depended on the plantation system, and they felt like their economy could not survive without the use of slave labor. And question 18, what does the word manumission mean? That is the term for freeing individual enslaved persons. And you can see an example of that document right here on the right. Well, thank you so much for watching. Before we go, of course, I've got a meme. Shays Rebellion? Never heard of it. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.